So, hello and welcome to the second session of Splunk. Today we are going to deep dive into installation of Splunk into the Linux basics, into the AWS part of Splunk as well. Okay, so I would be going relatively slow today as well. So if you guys have any questions, please do raise your hands. Just don't unmute yourself and start asking them. Okay, so let's discuss what would be the agenda for today's class. Okay, so the agenda for today would be we are going to talk about Splunk installation on AWS. Okay, so we are going to talk about Splunk installation on AWS. Before talking about this part, we are also going to talk about some Linux basics. So this would come actually afterwards. Before this, we are going to talk about some Linux basics as well. Okay, so those who are not familiar with Linux, we are going to start off with the Linux basics today. Yes, everyone is going to get the recordings. Everyone, for every class, you are going to get the recordings. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so we are going to talk about Linux basics today. We are going to talk about Splunk installation on AWS. We are going to talk about the UI of Splunk. So we are going to deep dive into the UI from today itself. And we are also going to talk about the components of Splunk if time permits. Okay, so we are going to talk about components of Splunk as well. So this is the agenda for today. Okay, before starting off with any specific thing, I want will be learn about the Mac basics. As of now, we are generally going to discuss about Windows and Linux, but I would also give you a video to basically installation on AWS or on installation of Splunk on Mac. So I'll give you a video on that. But if you want me to cover anything specifically for Mac, you can let me know. I can do that. But basically, because most of them, Splunk mostly is being used in Windows and Linux. So I would be covering the Windows and Linux part of it. Okay. So yeah, uh, before starting off with this class, okay, I have a question for you guys. Let's start this class with a question. Okay. The question is, anybody knows, okay, or who can tell me what is an operating system? Anybody here can tell me what is an operating system? Anyone? Any idea? Any definition which can come to your mind is absolutely fine. No problem. But do you have an understanding of what is an operating system? Operating system is a computer. Okay. So let's think about what is an operating system today. Okay. Everybody is logged in on a device, right? I hope most of you guys have logged in on a laptop slash desktop, right? Is your laptop and desktop the complete laptop or desktop is operating system? No, it is not. Okay. So if you think about your laptop, let's consider an example of a laptop, right? What is a laptop actually? A laptop has a lot of things in it. So when you talk about a laptop, it has RAM, which is random access memory. It has ROM, which is read-only memory. It has memory card, or I would say it has chips, right? It has a lot of chips on the background, right? If you have seen the hardware, okay, that one of the chip, main important chip is called motherboard, right? It has processors, okay? So it has a lot of things when it comes to the hardware part of it, right? So, and when you talk about the UI of it, when you talk about the UI of it, I have something called Windows, okay? So let's talk about each of these segments one by one. Okay, guys, I can hear some sound coming in. So please, would request everyone to mute themselves. Okay, so understand this complete machine. Okay, A machine comprises of two segments. Any laptop comprises of two segments. One is the hardware segment and the other is the software part of it. Okay. So when you talk about hardware, there is a random access memory. There's a read-only memory, which can also be termed as any of the hard disks, right? Any of the hard disk slash SSD, anything like that, right? It has a motherboard, it has a lot of processors, it has n number of hardware components that are involved. But think of it in a manner. My machine has all of this. I'm sure everyone who is using a laptop has all of these components. But can they work individually? Can they work? Can a hard disk work individually? Can I store anything on the hard disk just like that? I think no, right? So basically, the hardwares cannot interact with them individually. Okay. And that is why you need a kind of manager who can interact with all the hardware components in a manner that they can perform its task. So let's take an example of creating a file, or let's take an example of running any program. I am launching a program. Let's say if I am launching my Chrome, right? What is Chrome? This Chrome, if you just see, it's a kind of executable. Okay. If I show you the properties here, let's see. Okay. What does it say? It says chrome.exe. Okay. So it's a kind of executable, right? So when you run this Chrome, what is this? It is some sort of a program. It's some sort of a executable, right? So this executable runs, and whenever I run a Chrome, let's say this is my Chrome operating system. This is the Chrome, right? This is the Chrome browser. So when I'm running this Chrome, it utilizes some of my memory. It utilizes some of my hardware capacities like memory, processing power, storage. It utilizes all of this. Can I see that? Yes, I can see that. Let me show you. Okay. So I'm opening Task Manager here. Okay. So when I open Task Manager, what do you see? That I have launched Chrome operating system. This Chrome, I hope everybody is able to see. This Chrome is utilizing some percentage of my CPU, right? It is utilizing some percentage of my memory as well. And it is utilizing some percentage of my disk as well. Similarly, if you see Zoom, it is utilizing some percentage of my CPU. It is utilizing some percentage of my memory and my disk as well. Okay. So what I'm trying to mention here is a laptop or any machine consists of hardware components, but those hardware components cannot work out individually. You need to have a manager, or you need to have some kind of software that makes sure that you can interact with your hardware components. So let's take an example of Zoom only. So what I'm doing is, Zoom is an application, right? I am launching this application on my browser, or on my laptop, right? I'm launching this application on my laptop. How is the application getting launched? So when I'm launching this application, you are seeing that this application is consuming the memory, which is RAM. It is consuming the disk. It is consuming the CPU as well. But how is this application able to run on my hardware? It is because of the operating system. The operating system is a software that controls the entire computer. That that makes sure that your entire computer works as you want it to work. Okay. So it's, you can consider your operating system as the manager. Okay. The manager controls the entire team working under him. Similarly, an operating system is a software that controls the entire computer. It controls which application is consuming what kind of CPU, what kind of memory. It controls how is this memory and CPU is getting allocated. So it's almost the same thing, right? How is this much memory getting allocated to Zoom? How is this much memory getting allocated to Chrome? Who controls all these part? It is controlled by the operating system. And if you think about it, would be able to work on a laptop which doesn't have an operating system? I don't think so, right? Because it's the operating system that gives you the user interface. So what is a user interface? If I'll just log into my laptop, okay, what do I see? I see this beautiful background, right? I see that there are some components here. I can launch any component by just double clicking on it. What is this? This is the user interface of my laptop. Okay. So it's the operating system that makes sure that you are able to interact with the user interface. It makes sure that you are able to launch any application. If you want to launch an application, you can launch any application, any program, and it manages your resources as well. What are the resources? It manages your CPU, it manages your memory, it manages your disk, everything and anything. So can I say that operating system is also responsible, or it acts as a bridge between a human and a hardware? Can I say that? Yes, no? What do you think? Can I say that operating system acts as a bridge between the user and a hardware? Yes, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So what I'm doing is, so for example, if I'm typing a random word, okay, I'm typing, let's say, BHAVNEESH, just a name. Okay, what I am doing at this point in time, I am pressing the keys. What are these keys? These are just the hardware components, right? I am pressing this hardware components, and this operating system makes sure that whatever you are pressing gets displayed, right, on an application called Paint. So you can understand that an operating system is the crux of my entire laptop. Okay. Without an operating system, I cannot perform anything. Okay. If you don't have an operating system, your all hardware components are just useless because they cannot work individually. They need a manager to control them, to assign them tasks, right? So this is what an operating system is. Do you guys have any questions about it, or you guys have already understood it clearly? Any questions about what is an operating system?
No.
Okay, great. What about others? Okay,
No.
so let me tell you the major and the most used operating systems that are there. So basically, if you talk about organizations, if you talk about individuals, what are the types or what are the categories of operating system? What are the types of operating system that are available? So the types of operating system majorly are Linux operating system. First is Windows. Windows is like the most used operating system, I would say. Then it is Linux. Linux is widely used in organizations. Okay. Then there is a Mac operating system. Nowadays, a lot of people are using Mac operating systems as well, right? Then there is Android. Android is also an operating system which is used in like all the lot of mobile applications apart from iOS, right? So basically, iOS and Android also are two operating systems. So these are like the major operating systems that are being used in the world. I cannot think of any other, but these are the major: Windows, Linux, macOS, Android, and iOS. Okay, these are the major operating system. Now, I want you to understand the concept of operating system very well. Operating system is a manager that makes sure that you receive a user interface, that makes sure that you are able to launch applications, that makes sure that you are able to interact with hardwares. So basically, it is a single master uh, controller that provides you a user interface, that helps you running any application, that manages all your resources, right? And that acts as a bridge between hardware and software. Okay. I want you to revise this as much as possible. Okay. So this operating system is responsible for a lot of activities. Okay. So these activities are manage resources. This is one of the activities. Okay. Then the second activity can be running applications, right? Running applications. The third activity can be, let's say, providing a UI. Okay. It provides a user interface. And the fourth activity can be it acts as a bridge between hardware and software. Okay, so I hope everybody has understood that these are the functionalities of operating system. But now I want to talk about one more aspect of operating system, or one more component of operating system, and that component is called a kernel. Anybody knows here what is a kernel? Anyone who can tell me what is the kernel? Anyone? Okay, I'll take silence as a no. We all are humans, right? In our human body, there are a lot of organs, and every organ is responsible for doing its own task, right? For example, there is there are lungs which are responsible for inhaling, for processing the oxygen, right? There is liver, there is heart, there is brain, there are hands, there are legs. So basically, there are multiple aspects of my human body, of every human body, right? And every of these perform their own task, right? Similarly, kernel is the most fundamental or the most important part of a operating system. So it's not the complete operating system, guys. It is the most fundamental slash important part of operating system. Okay. So what does this kernel do? You need to understand that there's a difference between a kernel and an operating system. Okay. So kernel, you can consider kernel, it is like the heart and brain of operating system. Okay. It is like the most fundamental, most important part of the operating system. It's like the heart and brain. If your heart stops pumping blood, will the other parts of the body will they be able to work? I don't think so, right? If the heart itself stops, nothing else in my body will work. If my brain stops, or if any of these two organs stops, I would not be able to perform anything, right? Similarly, kernel, you can think it of as it is the heart and brain of operating system. It's the most important part of operating system. Okay. So basically, what does a kernel do? Kernel actually controls everything inside your computer. So when I talked about this part, right, that it acts as a bridge between your hardware and software. This exact part is the most important part, because how can you get a user interface if your hardware and the software are not bridged properly? So basically, if there's a hardware, if and there are software. So hardware are like the physical components, right? Software are like Zoom applications or any other things, right? These are just the small softwares, right? So it acts as a bridge between hardware and software, right? So a kernel is the most important part of an operating system. It can be taken off, or it can be thought of like the heart and brain of operating system. It controls everything like CPU, memory, devices, the ones that we thought about these, right? The CPU, memory, disk, and all the devices as well, like keyboard, mouse, it is controlled by the kernel. Okay. It controls the CPU, it controls the memory, it controls my keyboard, my mouse, everything and anything is actually being controlled by a kernel, right? And it is the kernel that makes sure that the software programs are also running. So basically, in an operating system, the most important part of it, which makes sure that the softwares are running, the resources are being managed, and all of this is the kernel. It's the most important part. But is kernel an operating system? No. Kernel is the most important part of an operating system, but kernel cannot be an operating system in itself, right? So operating system is kernel plus a lot of software. So if you talk about operating system is kernel. Operating system comprises of kernel plus a lot of softwares. So operating system is a bigger version. It has the kernel in it for sure, but along with kernel, it has a lot of softwares. Okay, it's not just the kernel which is an operating system. Okay, so kernel plus a lot of softwares which makes your computer usable is called an operating system. Does that may give you an understanding of what is a kernel and what is an operating system? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay, so uh, we have a lot of operating systems. Uh, Kernel is the fundamental part of the operating system, which is responsible for managing the resources. and which is responsible for bridging the gap between hardware and software. Okay. And an operating system consists of a kernel plus a lot of softwares. Okay. It is not just the kernel that can work, it is kernel plus a set of softwares, which is an operating system. Now, we have talked about what is an operating system. But why I have covered this point is because now I am going to create an instance on AWS. So AWS is a cloud provider, right? We are going to create an instance in AWS and we are going to utilize this, all of this understanding there. Okay. So anyone has any questions, you can let me know now. Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to talk about the other aspects of the AWS and other things as well. Any questions, guys? Any questions?
So is
No.
AWS, is it an operating system?
No, I'll come to it. Just give me I've just told you what is an operating system. Okay. I've just told you
O-
what is a kernel. I'm going to now talk about what is AWS. Why are we using AWS? Right. We are going to talk about it right now. Okay. Shall we go ahead? Any questions? Okay. I'll take silence as a no. So let's move ahead. Now, we are going to talk about one of the most important things that we are going to utilize in our practicals, which is AWS. What is AWS? Anybody knows the full form of AWS? Anyone? It starts with Amazon. W stands for web. Amazon Web Services, guys. Okay. So let me just go ahead. Okay. So it is Amazon Web Services. Okay. This is what an AWS is. Okay. Let me explain what is AWS and why AWS first of all. Okay, so AWS is a cloud provider. What is AWS? It's a cloud provider. Anybody knows? Can anybody tell me what is a cloud provider? Anyone has any clarity of what is a cloud provider? Anyone here?
iCloud.
iCloud was one example, definitely. It's a Apple cloud, right? So what is a cloud provider? What is a cloud actually? Can anybody tell me what is cloud?
Is
Very
it
basic.
data storage? Data storage.
Okay. Data storage, you can say that. But let me tell you, let me clear this to everyone. Okay. What is a cloud and what does AWS do? Is AWS the only cloud provider? We'll talk about that as well. Okay. So understand in this manner. Okay. Now, we were talking about that each of us who has joined this meeting must have used a device, right? Let's say you have used a Windows laptops or a Mac operating system or any other laptop. Let's say, okay, what is that laptop? That laptop consists of hardware. That laptop consists of hardware plus software, which is nothing but an operating system. Correct? So can I say an hardware and operating system is the major component of a laptop? Yes, I can say that. Okay. Now, let's say I decide that I am going to start my own company. Okay. I am a person, I decide that I have a very brilliant idea. I want to bring that idea to the world and start my own startup. Okay. And I have this very brilliant idea in my head. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to work on this idea. Okay. So I started working on this idea, and when I was actually planning for this, I decided, or I came to a fact that, oh my God, the idea that is there in my head is fine. It's absolutely fine. But if I want to implement that idea, or if I want to work on that idea, I need to have a team, right? I have an idea, very brilliant idea. Okay. I want to actually go ahead and work on that idea, but I cannot go ahead individually. I need a team to work on it, right? And if I need a team, okay, let's say I need a team of 10 people, right? Obviously, if they are going to join with me, I will have to not only give them salaries, but I will also have to give them individual laptops to work, right? I will have to give them individual laptops. They will work for me, and they will be helping me out to actually implement the idea, right? And when I'm building a team, just the laptops won't work. I need to have laptop, I need to have servers, right? I need to have a lot of servers wherein I will store everything, right? I need to have databases. I need to have networking devices. I need to have a lot of things. Okay, just with laptops, I cannot start my own company. If I want to start my own company, I need a lot of things. I need people, I need machinery like laptop, server, database, some networking devices. I need all of them. And in order to procure all of them, I might need thousands of dollars, because if I want to procure and build a server, okay, so what is a server? Server is a, you can say, a kind of a machine which has a very high computing power. Okay, so it's just like your normal machine, your normal laptop, but the computing power, the memory, the CPU, that is to next level. The amount of memory, the amount of CPU that a server has is very high as compared to your normal laptops, because the work of a server is to actually respond to a lot of requests. So if you think about it, what is a server? Okay, everybody here uses facebook.com, yes, no? Or if not now, you must have used facebook.com somewhere in the past, yes, no?
Yeah.
Okay, now how do you go ahead and use facebook.com? You just go to the, either you have an application, okay, that you have on your mobile, or you just go to the browser and type facebook.com. But what happens actually, that goes to a server, right? Where is the facebook.com hosted? Facebook.com is an application developed by Mark Zuckerberg, right? It is hosted on a server. So that server, when I say hosted on a server, it actually lies on a remote server. Okay, so it lies on that remote server. You are just accessing it via your own laptop. Does that make sense to everyone? Yes or no? Does that make sense to everyone that facebook.com actually resides on some distant server? We are just able to access it from our browser or from our phone. Does that make sense to everyone? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's go back to our prior example. I have a brilliant idea in my head. I am very keen to implement it. I need so much things. I need laptop, I need servers, I need database, I need networking. So one day I sat and I was calculating how much money do I need in order to procure all of this. Okay. So I calculated that I need minimum, let's say $30,000, $30,000 per year to actually just procure all of this. Okay. And it's just, when I will procure all of this, it's not just the hardware cost. I will need people, I will need more people to actually, I will need more people to actually take care of it. So basically, when I'll buy all of this, I'll buy my laptops, I'll buy my servers, I'll buy my database, I'll buy the networking devices. I need people to manage to manage the things, right? It will not work individually. I need people to manage the devices, right? I need people to manage the infrastructure, I would say. So I had an idea, but what I came to know is implementing of that idea is very tough, because first I need to procure so much of the things. Secondly, I need more people to manage the infrastructure that I'm going to procure. So it's not an easy job. The idea that is in my head will remain in my head because I don't have that much of money, right? So now this was the problem early in 2000s. So this was the problem early in 2000s, and this was actually thought upon, and there were some giant companies that came up with a solution. Okay, so this was one of the problems. Okay, this is a very big problem, and in the early 2000s, because of the lack of funds, a lot of good startups couldn't come into picture. A lot of startup ideas just went, like, it were not they were not able to implement the good startup ideas, because not everyone is privileged, right? Not everyone has so much money to get these things through. So what was the solution of that? There were few companies like AWS, like Azure. Okay, this Azure is of Microsoft. They came up with a brilliant idea. They said that, okay, I understand this problem, I understand the startup ecosystem is striving, but they are not able to implement anything. Why? Because they lack funds. Not everybody has those funds, and not everyone has the courage itself to invest so much on an idea, right? What if the idea doesn't work? That would be so much of an issue, right? So these guys, AWS, Azure, they came up with a master plan. Okay, they said that what they are going to do is they are going to build big data centers. Okay, what are these big data centers? These big data centers will comprise of a lot of hardware. Okay, so they are going to build big data centers. Okay, and what they are going to do is they are going to rent they are going to rent they are going to rent machines, they are going to rent servers, they are going to rent other like databases and other things. Okay, they are going to rent all of this. So basically they are going to buy everything because they have money, they are big players, right? So they have the money, they are going to buy, and they are going to create a big data center, and they are going to rent it out to people. So you can correlate this to a scenario. Let's say you get a new job, okay, and you need to move to a new city, right? So if you want to move to a new city, you will need a house to be there, right? You need a house to stay. But are you going to buy that house? No. You are going to rent that house from some owner. Similarly, now startups doesn't need to buy all of this. There are some big players who have already like created very big data centers in which these machines, servers and databases, all of them were already there. And they were saying that, hey, you don't buy, you rent it out for me. So if you want to rent it for 1 month, rent it for 1 month. If you want to rent it for 2 years, rent it for 2 years, up to you. So you don't have to pay the initial cost of investment for buying all of this. You can just rent it out from me, and you can pay the rent every month. So there came the concept of cloud. So the concept of cloud says it is a rented module. What do you mean by rented module? Rented module means that you are not supposed to buy anything. You're not supposed to buy anything. Everything will be rented. And who is buying actually? The big players like AWS and Azure are buying all these machines. They are making sure that their machines are working absolutely fine. The small players like us are just renting those machines, and we are just paying the rent every month. So these guys are the ones, I would say, with the advent of cloud technologies, it was a big, I would say, a big step, or big privilege to the small startups and to the other people who are planning to get it. So for example, if you move out to a new city, you don't have the money to buy the house, right? You will get salary every month, so you can pay the rent of the house. Similarly, small startups doesn't have the money to buy and manage all of this. They can just rent it out from the big players, and they can pay the rent every month. So cloud, the concept of cloud is a rented module, right? Where you will utilize the machinery. That machinery is hosted on their place. So for example, the AWS has their data center, let's say in Northern Virginia. So AWS has the data center in where, let's say in Northern Virginia. Okay. They have placed the data center in Northern Virginia. Okay. Northern Virginia. Now, the data center is in Northern Virginia. But if I'm from India as well, I will be able to access the data center. I can. So the data center is what? Data center is collection of hardware. Collection of hardware. Very, very big hardwares. Okay. It is collection of hardwares. Okay. And I being in India also, I can access those hardware. I can rent those hardwares. That is the technology that they have brought in. So if I show you something like, let's say, AWS data centers, okay, and I'll show you the images of it, this AWS data centers. You see, this is how a data center looks like. This is how the data center looks like. These are all the devices, and these devices are so placed in racks. Do you see these devices? Do you see these devices? Okay. Do you see these devices placed in racks? Okay, wait. Okay. So do you see these devices placed in racks? So these
Yes.
devices are interconnected, and they have bought so many devices, placed them in a data center, and they have built a technology that I am from a distant place. I'm from India, but the data center is in Northern Virginia. I can still access the machines. I can still rent out the machines virtually. I don't have to manage it. They will all be managed by AWS. So these big players came up with a big idea that they are going to create these big data centers, and they are going to rent out these machines to people. So let's say if I'm building my website, I can rent just this part of it. The other website can rent this machine. So basically, they have so much of hardware capacity that you can rent small segments out of it. Does that make sense to everyone? Yes or no? Any questions
Makes
by
sense.
anyone? Any questions?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I don't got no questions. I understand.
Okay. So, um, I hope this makes sense to everyone that instead of actually buying the hardware and having a headache to manage the hardware, I'm just renting it out from the big players, just as I rent a home. Just as I go to another city to rent a home, I'm just renting the hardwares. And I don't need to manage all of it because I'm paying the rent. They will be managing all of it. Okay. So this is how it is. Yeah, Antliff, go ahead with your question, please.
So Instagram is one of them hardware boxes. That's what you're saying.
So Instagram is not a data. Instagram is an application. Okay. Instagram is not a kind of service that can help us. So understand. Okay. AWS and Azure are the players who have created these data centers. Okay. Instagram is just an application that is launched somewhere. Facebook will have their own data center. You understand? And Instagram application is launched there. You understand what I'm trying to say? So every application is launched on a server. If I want to create an application, I need the hardware. I need the server on which I will install the application. If you think about it, every of you guys have installed Zoom, right? What is Zoom? Zoom is an application. But if your hardware is not there, if your laptop is not there, where you are going to install an application? Similarly, when it comes to Instagram, Instagram is an application. That application is installed, or that application is hosted on a hardware which resides in the Facebook data center. You understand? So these big players are having their own data centers, but small people like us, like small startups, small institutes, they cannot buy all of this. We can just rent it out from their data centers. Does that give you a clarity, guys?
Yeah.
Anyone who has not understood this part, you can still ask me a question. Yes, go ahead, please, Stefan.
I want to ask that how many gigabytes would this AWS gives you?
I'll come to it. Just allow me like 5 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
As of now, I've just told you guys that now if I have a startup idea, I don't need to wait and buy all these things. I can just rent it out. So I hope you understand that now the concept of cloud is a rented module concept, wherein you can take up the resources from the cloud provider. Who is the cloud provider? Amazon. Who is the cloud provider? Azure. Who is the cloud provider? There's a cloud provider called GCP as well, Google Cloud, right? So there are multiple cloud providers. Okay. So you can just rent all these things from cloud providers. You don't have to buy it. You just need to understand till this point. Okay. Now, in this training, we are going to cover AWS, the basics of AWS and we are going to cover the basics of GCP both. Okay, so that you guys are familiar with all these concepts. Okay, so let's talk about AWS. Okay, so in order, if I want to go to AWS, I'm not sure how many of you guys have actually watched, or how many of you guys have actually tried setting up AWS account, but let me give you quick help about it. Okay, I'll go to my browser. I'll just type AWS management console. When I type AWS management console, I hit enter. The first site that you see, Stefan, you can unraise your hand if you don't have a question, please. Okay, so I'm going to just type AWS management console here on the browser. I'm going to click on the very first link here, just very first link. Stefan, you have a question? Do you have a question, Stefan? Okay, no problem. Thank you. Okay, so now when I actually went to this AWS management console, this is what is going to come. This kind of thing is going to come. Okay, this is how my AWS management console is going to look like. Okay, I've just written AWS management console on the browser. This is how it's going to look like. Okay, I am supposed to click on sign into this console. Okay, I'm supposed to click on sign into this console and this kind of UI will come up. Okay, you need to provide the details here. Okay, so I will just go ahead and I'll just use my Gmail. I'll provide my Gmail ID. Just give me a minute, please. I'm going to tell you the steps. Okay, don't worry about it. Just let me log in to it first. I'm logging to my AWS account, guys. Okay, so once I log into the AWS account, I'm going to tell you the step-by-step things to go ahead. Just give me a second. Let me just recall my password. I'm very bad in remembering passwords. Okay, I think I got it. Oh my God. Okay. Okay, this is giving me some issue. I'm just going to stop my screen share for 1 minute. I'm going to just forget my password and type the new password. Just allow me a minute. And then I'm going to explain you guys from the step by step of how you can create your account on AWS and how you can actually go ahead and log into AWS. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Okay, I'm going to stop my screen share for now. Meanwhile, if you have a question that you want to ask, please feel free.
So if you have a Amazon account already, you could just use that.
Yes, if you have an Amazon account already, you don't need to do anything. You can just go ahead and use it. Just the only thing is, it is for people who don't have an Amazon account yet. You can still take this advantage. Okay. Somehow it's creating some issues. Just allow me a minute. I'm not able to sign into my management console somehow. This is strange. Okay, finally I got in. So let me explain you the process one by one. Okay, I'm going to reshare my screen, guys. If you have a question, you can raise your hands and I'll explain you the step by step. Okay, so I am using a new incognito window. I'm going to tell you the steps of how you can go ahead and create your own AWS account. Although the document is available, I'm just going to quickly explain. Okay, so AWS Management Console, you write this. Once you write AWS Management Console, this is the first link that's going to come up. You need to just click on this link. Once you click on this link, there will be an option to create an AWS account. Okay, so once you click on the link, there will be an option to create an AWS account. You need to click on this create an AWS account. Okay, once you click on create an AWS account, it will ask you for some details. Okay, so it is going to ask you for an email address. Let's say, okay, so let's say if I give an email address, let's say if I give an email address like this, okay, it's going to give you account name. I'll just give any account name and I just give any email address. Okay, let it be. It is going to actually verify the email address. I don't have a spare email address with me, but let me quickly check. It's going to verify the email address. So I'll just verify it quickly.
Do we have to use the free one?
It's free only. First 700 hours of it is free. Okay, so you don't have to do anything. So there would be a verification code that will come here. Okay, there will be a verification code that is going to come up to your email ID. Whatever email ID you have provided, there will be a verification code that's going to come up and you are going to type that verification code. Okay, so once you type that verification code, let me just quickly uh open the document that I sent you guys. Okay, so let me go to the document. I'll go to explain you the step by step there. But it's very simple, guys. Creating an AWS part is very simple. Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's saying that it's asking root user or IM user. Which one
Root
will we
user, root
be?
user.
Okay.
You're going, okay. So first you are going to type AWS Management Console. Once you click on AWS Management Console, do you see that there is an option for create an account, create an AWS account, right? You will click on create an AWS account. Then you will see an option for root user. Okay. So you'll have to give your email address to the root user. Okay. Once you have clicked on the email address, it will, look, you have to provide an email address. Okay. And account name, any account name, you have to provide it here. So basically, once you click on this create a AWS account, once you click on it, okay, you will provide this email address. Then this sort of screen will come in wherein you have to provide your email address and account as well. Once you provide your email address and account, there would be a verification code. An email would be received on your email ID. Okay, and you will receive a verification code on your Gmail. So you need to give, there would be a there you will have to type this verification code here and click on verify. Okay, once you click on verify, then you will you'll have to provide a password. So any password you can hide. So first you'll get a verification code, you'll have to verify. Once you verified, you will be asked to provide a password. You need to provide some password here. Once you have provided your password, this is the main step, guys. Here you need to give your credit phone number details and other thing. After that, you need to enter the credit card details. Okay, that screenshot is not added because of the credit card details. It's a PII, right? So once you do all this step, there would be an option to enter the credit card details. You need to enter the credit card details. It's not going to deduct any money. Okay, you don't have to deduct any money out of it. So you just need to enter these things and enter the credit card details. Again, there would be a verification code that will come up and you will be set up. So basically, if you follow the document that I have sent, there should not be an issue. People should be able to register. If you are not able to register to the AWS account after following the steps in the document, please let me know. The document is already shared in the drive. Okay, is that part clear to everyone? Yes, no? Antliv, you have a question, go ahead with it, please. Okay, no. Fine. So everybody
So
understands
is
this
it a
part.
business
Sorry,
or personal?
sorry, I didn't get you.
It's asking if it's a business or personal
Personal,
account.
right? You are not doing a business. You're learning it for your personal purpose, right? So it would be personal. Okay. So those who are trying to do it now, please don't do it. Okay, I'll request you. Why? Because you are going to miss out on few things that I'm going to explain right now. Okay. So if you want to do it, you can do it after the class, please. Now, we have talked about it that there was this problem and this was solved by some cloud providers. And now we don't need to buy all the machineries. We can rent it out from cloud. Everyone is clear with that concept? Yes, no? Now I'm going to show you guys how you can actually use an AWS and how you can actually rent a machine from AWS. So if you want to rent out a machine, you can rent it out from AWS. How? Let's do that. Okay. So let's go with it. This is my AWS. This is my AWS. This is how. Okay. Once you have created an account. Okay. Once you have created an account, and you will have to go to this AWS management console once more. Okay, it will ask you to sign in. So whatever email ID and password you have provided while creating an account, you will have to sign in via that email ID and password. So whatever email ID and password you have created while creation of an account, you will have to provide the same email ID and password. Then a window like this will come up. A window like this is going to come up. This is the AWS default window. Okay. Now I'm going to show to everyone how do you rent a machine from AWS? How do you rent a specific machine from AWS? In order to rent a machine or in order to get a machine from AWS, you will have to go to this search bar and type EC2. What is EC2? EC2 stands for Elastic Cloud Compute. So this EC2 here stands for EC2 stands for EC2 stands for Elastic Cloud Compute. Okay. So it stands for Elastic Cloud Compute. Okay. So this is the EC2, not EC at the rate. It should be EC2. Okay. So this is the by default browser, or this is the by default AWS window that will come up. In the search bar, you need to type EC2. You'll have to click on the first thing. What does it say? Virtual servers in the cloud. That means using this service. This is one of the service, guys. It's one of the most important service of AWS. Okay. Using this service of AWS, you can rent out machines. This is simple. If you want to rent out machines, you'll have to type EC2. Once you type EC2, right, I can rent any type of machine that I want to. If I want to rent a Windows machine, I can rent it. If I want to rent a Linux machine, I can rent it. If I want to rent any other machines, any machine, I can rent it out. Okay. If I want to rent a machine of, let's say, 20 GB RAM, I can do that. If I want to rent a machine of 50 GB RAM, I can do that. But you need to remember, the more resources you rent out, the more rent you have to pay. Similar to this, if you go to other state to get a 1 BHK flat for rent, you'll have to pay a lesser rent. But if you want to go for 4 BHK flat for rent, you'll have to pay a higher rent, right? Similarly, in AWS, if you want to get small machine with small storage, with small CPUs, you will rent it out for a very less amount. But if you want a bigger storage, you'll have to get it, you'll have to pay a larger amount for it. So EC2, which stands for Elastic Cloud Compute, is a service which you can utilize in AWS to rent machines. Is that clear to everyone? Yes, no? Everyone, yes, no?
Yes, I understand it.
Okay, great. Now what I'm going to do is I have went to this, I've typed EC2. So therefore this EC2 dashboard is coming up. Do you see this? This EC2 dashboard is coming up. Now I'll launch an instance. Again, you need to understand, okay, there are some terminologies that you need to understand in cloud. Okay. The terminology says instance is what? Instance is nothing but a machine. Okay. You can see, you can understand this instance is nothing, any machine. It can be a laptop, it can be a server, any machine can be an instance. Okay, so in AWS terminology, it is called an instance. Does it make sense? Okay, let's go ahead. So I am going to launch an instance. When I clicked on launch an instance, it is asking me, what would you name that instance? I will say, I will name that instance, let's say Splunk Linux instance, because this is the instance I'm going to use to install Splunk. I will install Splunk on this instance. Okay, so the instance name is called Splunk Linux instance. Okay, this is the instance name. What is the operating system that you are going to choose? Now you need to remember, we have talked about operating system previously, right? What is operating system? Operating system is the software that controls the complete hardware in my machine. So if I want to rent out a machine, I will have to select what operating system do I need to rent. So there are all sorts of operating system. There's a Red Hat operating system, SUSE Linux, Debian operating system, Windows, Ubuntu, Mac. So I am going to select this Amazon Linux operating system. Okay, you can select anyone. You can select this Ubuntu. You can click on Ubuntu to select Ubuntu. You can click on Windows to select Windows. Okay, so whenever you click whichever operating system you select, that operating system will by default come in that machine. So I am going to select Amazon Linux as my operating system. I'm going to select Amazon Linux as my operating system. Does that make sense to everyone? I'm going to select this Amazon Linux as my operating system because this is the operating system. Okay. What is the name of the machine that I want to create? I'll name it Splunk Linux. I have selected this operating system. This is a 64-bit operating system. How many of you guys actually know that there are two kinds of operating system? One is 64-bit, other is 32-bit operating system. Anybody knows that? Yes, no? Okay, nice. Okay, if you don't know about 64 and 32-bit, I can cover it up in the later classes when we would be talking about networking. But I think this is a very basic, okay? There are two kinds of architecture, generic architecture. One is a 64-bit architecture, other is this 32-bit architecture. So I am selecting this 64-bit x86 architecture. Okay, I've not changed anything. I've just selected the Amazon operating system. I'll go down. It says what is the type of instance. Now somebody was asking me this part, how much of a instance we can like what kind of instance can we select, right? Can we get a 10 GB RAM, 10 GB memory? Okay, so now you need to understand that there are multiple instance type. Let's see this instance type called T2 micro. This T2 micro is a very small instance and it is a free tier instance. Okay, this T2 micro has one CPU, it has one GB GIB memory. Okay, and this is the cost. It is costing very less per hour. But if you select a higher machine type, let's say you want to select T2X large. Okay, yeah, T3 medium. If you see this T3 medium, it has two virtual CPUs, 4 GIB memory, and the CPUs and memory. If you see the T2 micro, it has one CPU and one memory, right? One GIB memory. This medium has two virtual CPUs and 4 GIB memory. If you see large, it has two virtual CPU cores and 8 GIB memory. If you wanted more memory, 4 virtual CPU and 16 memory. So there are a lot of options that are available. If you see, this is the one of the large, very large, right? It has 48 virtual CPUs and 96 GIB memory. But the costing would be very much. If you see, it costs around $5 per hour. So if you want to use it for 3 hours, you'll have to pay $15-20, right? I am going to select this T2 micro only. But this is where you can select which kind of instance you want to have. I would recommend for this training, you don't need to select any other instance type. T2 micro will work absolutely fine. Okay, if you see this, in the first year it includes 750 hours of T2 micro free, right? 750 hours of public IPv4 usage free, 30 GIBs of storage free. So it is a free tier instance, and for this training it is enough for you to use T2 micro. So I am going to select the instance type as T2 micro. Okay, then let's talk about the key pair login. Okay, Now, this is very important. Till now, what we have done, just a quick revision. First step, we have gone to this AWS management console. We have given the name of the instance that it is Splunk Linux instance. Okay. What is the operating system that I want to select? I want to select this Amazon Linux operating system. Okay. I've selected this one. What is the instance type I'm selecting? I'm selecting T2 micro instance type. Why? Because I need a free tier instance. It is having less CPU and less memory, but it is free. I'm fine with it. I can deal with a little bit of slowness, but I'm fine with not paying anything to AWS. Okay. Now, this is an important part. What is this key pair? I told you this part. I told you this part, right? That in AWS, okay, when we're talking about AWS, what is this AWS? AWS are cloud providers. Understood? Everybody understands that AWS is a cloud provider. What is a cloud provider? Can anybody tell me? Anyone tell me what is a cloud provider here? Anyone? Guys, I want this class to be interactive. Okay. So even if you are telling me the wrong thing, I'm okay with it. Yes, Nina, go ahead.
It's providing a storage for an organization.
It is providing a storage, not just storage. Okay. It can
Data
provide
storage.
not just data storage. It can provide CPU, memory, RAM, everything, right? It is basically that it can rent out a complete laptop. In your laptop, it's not just the storage. It has hard disk, it has a RAM, it has a motherboard, it has all the things, right? In your laptop. So basically, AWS is a cloud provider. It can help you to rent out a machine. What is a machine? Machine is nothing but your laptop. Let's consider it your laptop. So let's say if you want to get additional laptop and you don't want to buy it from the market, you can rent it from AWS. Does that make sense? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Rented module.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. So now the concept here is I am saying that let's say you want another machine and you don't want to go to the market to buy out a new laptop. What you can do, you can rent it out from AWS. Everybody understood this part, right? But the question here is, I am there in India. Okay. I am there in India. If I rent out a machine that is in Northern Virginia, okay, just an example, or let's say Ohio, okay, I am in India. I want a laptop. I don't have enough money to buy a laptop. I'm renting it out from AWS and the actual machine, it is located in Ohio, but I am renting it out in India. How can I access a machine that is present in Ohio? How can I access that machine? How can I log into that machine that is present in Ohio? Have you ever thought about it? How can
Yeah,
I log in?
you need a network connection.
I need a network connection. How do you think we'll be able to establish a network connection? I am in India. Okay. The server or the machine that I'm renting is present in Ohio because the data center is in Ohio. Amazon has their data center in Ohio, right? So I have showed you the image of data center. Data center is what? Data center is having all the machines. So let me show you again. Okay. Data centers. Okay.
You're going to go through remote.
Yeah, somebody said it right. Okay. So this is how data center looks like, right? Data center is it is like a lot of hardware that is put in racks. Okay. And this data center is in Ohio. I want to rent it out. I am renting it out from India. How can I rent it out? Even if I've paid the price, I am renting it out. I have paid the price to Amazon. How can I access that machine that is present in Ohio? I will not go to Ohio to log into that machine, right? I need a way. Okay. And
Remote.
somebody sending. Yes.
Remote.
Yes.
Remote
Yes.
access.
Yes. That is called remote access. Okay. So in Windows, do you know there's a utility called RDP? Anybody know this? Okay, we'll come to it. Don't worry about it. When it comes to remote access, that means I am sitting in India. I am accessing a machine in Ohio remotely. How can I access a machine remotely, guys? How can I access a machine? There is a software, I'm not sure. Most of you guys must have heard. There's a software called PuTTY. You know what is PuTTY? Guys? Anybody has used
No.
PuTTY? No. I'll show you.
No.
I'll show you now. Okay. So I'm staying here in India. I've rented a machine in Ohio. I'll not go to Ohio to log into that machine. I'll be doing a remote access to that machine using a software called PuTTY. Okay. So what we are going to do now is we are going to rent out a machine and we are going to use PuTTY and we are going to get access to that machine. Make sense? Shall I go ahead? Okay. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. Okay. Now let's go back to the AWS instance. You need to understand one more thing, guys. I am creating this machine, but where is this machine going to be created? This machine is going to be created in Sydney because that's the region that I have selected. If I want this machine to be created anywhere else, I can select, let's say I'm selecting Ohio. I want this machine to be present in Ohio. Okay. And I would be, so I have selected the region as Ohio, right? I have selected the region as Ohio because I have just given an example of Ohio, right? I am going to name my machine, let's say as Splunk Linux machine. Any name you can give. Okay. The name of the machine is Splunk Linux. What is the operating system I'm going to select? I'm going to select an operating system called Amazon Linux operating system. Okay. Then I'm going to check the instance type. There is something called instance type. What is instance type? This is a this actually tells, or you are going to tell Amazon that how much CPU and how much memory you need. So there are different instance type. I am going to select T2 micro. Why T2 micro? Because it is free. I am okay with that. Okay. Now I am going to get something called key pair. Okay. So there is something called key pair. I'm going to create a key pair and I'm going to tell you why we have created a key pair later. Okay. So before creating a key pair, let's first do one thing. A lot of you, everyone who is going to register to the AWS, they also need to download something called PuTTY. You can just go to any Chrome window, you just write PuTTY download. Okay, you write it PuTTY download. You need to click on the very first link here. Okay, you need to click on the very first link. Let me click on it. Once I click on this link, okay, once I click on this link, there is an option to download PuTTY. Do you see this? Yes, no? I'll just click on this download PuTTY option. Okay, I'll just click on download PuTTY option. And once you click on the download PuTTY, there are multiple MSI files that you see. You see for Windows machine, right? You can use a 64-bit operating system. You can use a 64-bit x86, use 32-bit x86. Okay, so for Windows operating system, you will use this 64-bit MSI because most of your machine, I believe, most of your machines should be 86 64-bit only. How can you check whether your machine is 64-bit or 32-bit, guys? How can you check whether your machine is 64-bit or 32-bit? Can anybody tell me? How can you check whether your machine is a 64-bit operating system or a 32-bit operating system? Can anybody tell me?
You can go and check on your computer the tax bar.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
then type in operating system and then everything will show up.
Yeah. So basically what you can do is you can everyone has this PC, right? If you are using Windows, you must be having this PC. I'm only telling it for Windows. Those who are using Mac, I'll tell you exact way to access Mac as well. I'll share a video with you guys. Don't worry about it. Okay. I'm just explaining it for Windows. Okay. So if you click on this PC, if you right click on this and if you click on properties, okay, if you click on properties, in the properties, you would be able to know whether my machine is a 64-bit operating system or a 32-bit operating system. So my machine is a 64-bit operating system, x864 based processor. You understand? This is the kind of processor. This is my operating system. So you will also have to check before downloading PuTTY, you will check whether your operating system is 64-bit operating system or your operating system is 32-bit operating system. Okay, mine is 64-bit operating system. So what am I going to do is I'm going to go to this PuTTY download and I'm going to click on this MSI file because it says it is 64-bit operating system x86, right? I'm just going to click on it. Once I click on it, it will start the download. Okay, so my download is also completed. If you see, my download is almost done. Okay, so what have I done is I went again, I'm explaining this part again. I went to this PuTTY download. Once I went to the PuTTY download, I clicked on the first link. Then I clicked on the download PuTTY. I have checked what my machine is, whether my machine is 64-bit or 32-bit. How do I check it? I'll go to this PC, I'll right click, I'll check the properties. In the properties, I will be able to see whether my machine is 64-bit operating system or 32-bit operating system. Okay. And then I can download the PuTTY, whichever version I have. I have downloaded 64-bit operating system, right? Now, this is my PuTTY. It will go into downloads. It will go into my downloads. This is the downloads, right? It will go into my download. So you will see a download 64-bit operating system. You'll see for this, right? How do you install it? You double click on it. Once you double click on it, it will say preparing for install. Okay. You just have to click next, 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 finish. You don't have to think about anything. Just next, next, next. In the end, it will be finished. I'm not doing that because I already have PuTTY. Okay, so you just click on next, 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 finish. Double click on this and just click on next, 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 finish. So understand this now. Okay, we have downloaded PuTTY. Okay, anyone who has any questions, please let me know. Okay, we have downloaded PuTTY. Why we have downloaded PuTTY? Because we are going to rent a machine in Ohio. Okay, and I want to access a machine from a distant location named India. Right, I want to access this machine from India. How can I access it? I can access it via PuTTY. So first things first, I have downloaded PuTTY. Okay, but again, if you think of it, you want to access a machine, right? You want to access a machine. If you want to access some machine, or think about your laptop, if you give your laptop to someone, will they be able to access your laptop? If you give your laptop to me, will I be able to access your laptop? Yes or no? What do you think?
No.
Why?
You need the login credentials.
Exactly. Unless and until you tell me the password of the laptop, how will I be able to access your laptop? You understand? So I have got a mechanism via PuTTY. I can access this remote server. But in order to access this remote server also, I need some credentials, right? I need some credentials, some user ID, some password. I need these things. If I don't have a user ID and password, would I be able to access a machine in Ohio? Even though I have PuTTY, I cannot, right? So how to get the credentials for that machine? The question is, you want to access it. You have got PuTTY, but how do you get the credentials? In order to get the credentials for this, here in this launch instance, this is where we are coming to. We create a key pair. What is the key pair? Key pair is nothing. You can understand it. It is kind of a credential file. It is a key pair, but it helps you to log into a machine. Okay. And I can give it any key pair name. So let me give the name of the key pair as Splunk batch 7 key pair. This is the name of the key pair that I'm going to give. Okay. Okay. Splunk batch 7 key pair. I am creating a key pair. Okay. The key pair name is Splunk batch 7 key pair. The key pair type would be RSA. And because I am using PuTTY, I need to select PPK here. Because PPM format will work for OpenSSH. But what I've told you, we are using PuTTY. So if we are using PuTTY, we need to use this PPK. Okay. So I'm going to create a new key pair. So what have I done is, because if I want to access a remote machine, I need the credentials. So I have created a key pair. You can give any name here. You can give any name. Remember, the key pair type is RSA and this is PPK. Always it will be PPK. Don't select PEM. Otherwise, you will not be able to connect with PuTTY. Okay. PPK says for use with PuTTY. So I'm going to create the key pair. I'm going to create this key pair. So when I create this key pair, what do you see is, again, this key pair got downloaded. This key pair got downloaded. That means the key pair file .ppk file got downloaded. Where I can see the downloads? Again, in the downloads directory, right? In the downloads, I would be able to see, if I just refresh it, I would be able to see that this key pair that I have just created on AWS, that file gets downloaded here. Okay. So again, what have I done? Just given some name, selected the operating system, selected the instance type, now created a key pair. I have created one key pair. This key pair will help me to access the remote machine. Okay. Now, for the network settings, as of now, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to tell you about network settings. I'm going to tell you about VPC. I'm going to tell you about everything. But as of now, leave it. Okay. Again, storage. It tells me, if you see above, it tells me that you get 30 GBs of storage. You see 30 GIBs of EBS storage can be got. So by default, it gives me 8. I can select maximum of 30. Why I'm selecting 30? Because 30 is or anyhow it is free, right? So we can select the maximum up to which it is free. Let's utilize it to its full potential, right? So now I have not touched anything on the networking again. I have just change the storage here to 30 GBs, and I'm going to click on launch instance. When I click on launch instance, a new machine would be created in AWS. Shall I do it? Everybody's comfortable till now? If not, tell me. I'll reply to all the answers. I'll reply to all the questions. Please do tell me if you're comfortable.
I'm
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
watching.
good.
I still want to do it though.
You can do it after the class, buddy. Don't do it while I'm doing it. Otherwise, you will miss out. Okay. So I'm going to launch this instance now. Let me launch it quickly. One, you got. So we have launched it. So now just by a few clicks, I am able to rent out a machine on AWS. Okay. And where can I see that machine? I'll just click on this instances. If I click on the instances, I would be able to see my machine name. What is the name of my machine, guys? Splunk
Spark
underscore
Spark
Linux.
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 That was what I mentioned, right? So, and you see that this machine is up and running. What is the type of machine? T2 micro. Where is it located? It is located in Ohio. You understood? Okay. So my machine is created. I got my machine, guys. Finally, with just a few clicks, I got my machine. Now the part is, I want to log into this machine. Otherwise, why we have created this machine? If I cannot log into this machine, what's the point of renting out machines from AWS? How do I log in? Remember we downloaded PuTTY some time back? Yes, no?
Yes.
Right? We downloaded PuTTY. So let's use it. Okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to click on this Windows tab, start icon. We are going to click on this. We are going to type PuTTY. Okay. So I'm going to open this. Again, those who have Mac machines, please just watch it. Okay. I'm going to give you another video or how to do it for Mac. It's a 25-30 minutes video. Everything would be clear for you guys. Okay. So don't worry if you're not able to, if you feel that, okay, I cannot do it because I have Mac. No, don't worry. I'll give you that. Okay. Now, this is how my PuTTY will open. What have I done? What have I done? I've just went to the start icon and I just typed PuTTY. Okay. And I clicked on it. Now PuTTY will come up. I want to access this machine. If I want to access this machine via PuTTY, I need to give the IP address of this machine. So let's see. Wait, let's see. What are the IP address of this machine is? If you see, when I click on this checkbox, I'll see all the details. If you don't click on the checkbox, you don't see the instance details. You have to click on this checkbox. Okay. Now, what are the IP addresses that you see? One is a public IP address, other is a private IP address. What IP address we should select while connecting with PuTTY? Always the public IP address. We will click on this public IP address. Once we click on this icon, so this public IP address will be copied. You see public IP address copied. I've just clicked on this icon. Okay, so I have copied the public IP address. After copying in, I went to this PuTTY. In the host name or IP address, I have pasted this IP address. Okay, so in this host name, I have pasted the public IP address, not the private. Remember that. Okay, now can I able to access it? No, I need to give it a credentials file. I have downloaded a credentials files as well, right? This is my credential file. Remember, I downloaded this key pair. What is key pair? Key pair is nothing but the credential file. I need to supply this credential file to PuTTY as well. How can I supply it? I will click on the SSH. I'll click here on the SSH. In the SSH, I'll click on the plus sign for authentication. Do you see? This is authentication. First, I click on this SSH. SSH plus sign, then authentication plus sign. Do you see credentials? Do you see this? I'll click on this credentials and I'll browse my file. So where is the file? It's so what I've done, I went to this credentials. I clicked on this credentials. Do you see? It says private key file for authentication. In the private key file for authentication, I'm going to click on browse and I'm going to select this credentials file. I'm going to select this credential file and I'm going to click on open. Once I click on open, okay, once I open it here as well, I need to accept it. Okay. And you see, it says you should log in as. What should be the username? The username for this machine should be EC2-user always. It's not going to change as of now. Okay. The username that you need to type is EC2-user. Okay. You will log in as, you will type EC2-user. You will just click on enter. And here via PuTTY, you have been able to access the machine. Remember, this is a Linux machine. Because it's a Linux machine, there would be no graphical user interface. It's not Windows, right? So you will only get this terminal. Okay. And how you can say that you have logged into a machine? Do you see this IP? 172.31.46.19. Do you see this IP? 172.31.46.19, the private IP. Do you see this private IP is the same as this IP? Yes, no, right? So I have logged in finally to my AWS machine. So I rented a machine. I downloaded PuTTY. I downloaded the credential file. I used all of that. And finally, I'm able to log into my AWS rented machine. Do you have any questions till now? Do you have any questions till now, guys? I don't
Yeah.
like a silent class. Please, I want people to be interactive.
All
Go
right, so
ahead.
I got a question. I got a
Go ahead,
question.
please. Go ahead.
You saying wait till don't try to do it right now. But
Yes.
so we have to wait till you upload the class to do
Yes.
it.
So basically, I would generally upload the class in maximum 2 hours of the class ending, right? 2 to 2.5 hours. Because why 2 to 2.5 hours? Because the recorded video takes some time for conversion, okay, into a format which I can upload. So that is why it takes some time. But if you are doing it while I am doing it, right, you are going to miss out on some steps, which I don't want. So you can always rewatch the video and you can do the setup. You don't do it while I am teaching it. Okay. You take a notebook while I'm teaching. I would request everyone from the next class. I would request everyone to take a pen and paper, to take a notebook and just write down whatever you can. Don't write down everything. Just write down whatever you want to. Okay. And rewatch the video and do the practicals because
So quick
every class
question.
is going to be practicals. Yeah. Go ahead. Any questions?
So the only way you'll be able to access your rented machine remotely is through using PuTTY, right?
Yes. There are other ways as well, but PuTTY is the easiest. You can use OpenSSH as well, but PuTTY is the easiest, right?
Okay.
Okay. So now, do you see that I am able to access it? Now I can check few things here. What is the present working directory? This is the EC2 user. Now, before going any further ahead, I am assuming that none of you guys know Linux, and I'm going to tell you from the very basics the concepts of Linux. Okay. So now I have told you till now, I've told you what? I have told you concept of operating system. I've told you concept of kernel. I've told you how you can create a machine on AWS and how you can actually log into that machine via PuTTY. Okay. When you are trying it out, I would request you one thing. Okay. When you are practicing it out, watch the recording and parallelly do the practice. Your all doubts would be clear. Still you have questions, you have my number. You can ping me. I'll be able to help you out. Okay. Anyone, nobody should face issues while doing this. You should come back to me. I'll help you out every single step. Okay. That's the thing. So now Yeah, go ahead with your question, please.
Please, where do you upload the videos? Are you going to send them to our
I
emails?
think I sent the link yesterday to a drive link to everyone who were able to access the drive link, guys. I sent the drive link along with the,
Me.
yeah, I sent it, the drive link to everyone. I'll send it once again to you again. Okay. Elegam,
Okay.
I'll send it to you again once. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to talk about Linux. Those who have, I see that a few of the guys who have joined late today. Okay. Elegam, you can now lower your hand if you don't have a question. There are few people who have joined late today, which is absolutely fine. Okay. You can still get in touch with me. You can just, I'm still again pinging my number to you guys. Okay. Get in touch with me, get the recordings and rewatch it. Okay. Those who have joined late can rewatch everything. I'll send the recordings. Just ping me or WhatsApp. Okay. Anyone, nobody should miss the classes. Everyone should get the required amount of learning. Okay. So yeah, that's the thing. Now we have talked about it. I want to talk about Linux. Why Linux? Because now everything and anything that we are going to do would be on Linux, guys. Because Linux is the most used operating system when it comes to Splunk. Windows is also used, but not that much. Okay. So now I'm going to talk about Linux. Anybody knows what is Linux? Anybody knows what is Linux?
It's an operating system
It's an operating system.
used by most organizations.
Ah, nice, nice. You actually mended the words very nicely. Thanks. Okay. I want to I want to give you I want to tell you the history of Linux. Anybody want to know the history of Linux? Anybody want to know how Linux came into picture? Anyone knows it? I'll tell you a very interesting story. Okay. It's the story that began in approximately 1960s. Okay. In 1960s, there was a operating system Unix got launched. It was launched by AT&T. So AT&T is a company that actually launched it. Okay. AT&T launched this earlier. I think it was called AT&T Bell Labs or something like that. Okay. So they were actually the ones who launched the Unix operating system in 1960s. Okay. And this was an operating system that was available. What happened in 1980s? There was a guy. Okay. There was a guy by the name of Andrew Tannenbaum. There was a guy by the name of Andrew Tannenbaum. Okay. He was actually a professor. And for his students, he developed a Unix-like operating system. It was something like Unix, but it was very small operating. It was a very just for some practicals or just for some labs, just for giving some kind of access to his students. He developed one kind of operating system called Minix. So this Minix, actually it was Minix, not Minux. Okay, Minix operating system. So this Minix operating system was just a small one. It was a very limited, just for his students to get access to it. But he was the actual inspiration for Linux operating system. So 1960s, AT&T's and T launched the Unix operating system. 1980s, a professor called Andrew Tannenbaum actually launched the Minix operating system, right? Just for his students. It was a very small and limited, it had very limited capabilities, but still he launched it for his students. In 1991, there was a guy called Linus Torvald. He was a student in a university. He was a computer science student, and he took inspiration from this Minix operating system. Okay, the problem in 1990s was there were other Unix operating system and other operating system were still there, but they were very costly. So he utilized, I'll come to this question later. Okay, so in 1960s, Unix was launched. In 1980s, this guy launched a minor version of Unix operating system called Minix. Okay. In 1991, there was a problem. The problem was like most of the Unix and other operating system, were actually very costly. So this guy, Linus Torvald, actually he was a computer science student. He took inspiration from Linux operating system and he developed a kernel. He developed a kernel called Linux. Again, what is a kernel? Kernel is a core part of the operating system which can interact with the hardware. Okay, which helps you interacting with the hardware. A user can interact with the hardware using a kernel, but it is not an operating system. So Linus Torvald developed a kernel named Linux using the inspiration that he had from Andrew Tannenbaum in Minix operating system. And later on, this Linux version was released. This Linux kernel version was released. But again, this Linux was not an operating system, right? So after some time, there was some, I think there was some organization that developed the softwares. There was, I don't remember, there was some FSF organization. I don't remember. I think Free Software Foundation or something like that. Okay. Free Software Foundation. Okay. So there was this organization called Free Software Foundation, if I remember it properly. There was a organization called Free Software Foundation that developed the required softwares, that develops the softwares, and it clubbed with the Linux kernel and created a Linux operating system. So this was a story of Linux operating system. First there was Unix, then there was this Andrew Tannenbaum. He developed this whole small version of Minix. Then there was this student, computer science student, who took this inspiration and created a Linux kernel. Then there was this Free Software Foundation groups. They created the softwares and they added a kernel along with it. And finally, the it came to known as this came to known as GNU Linux. GNU is the set of softwares. Okay, it came to be known as GNU Linux. So this is the story of Linux operating system. Okay, and we are going to talk about this Linux operating system now in great detail. Okay, we are going to talk about this Linux operating system now in great detail. So did you get an idea that even a computer science student created the whole operating system, created the core kernel of the operating system? And if some of you guys who are there in the training who don't have an IT experience, there was you can take inspiration from these stories, guys. Okay, you don't need an IT experience in order to be a learned professional. Okay, if you have the kind of skill set, if you can work hard, you can get it there. If a computer science students can build an operating system like this, right, in during 1990s when there was nothing around, right, you guys can also do it. That's a motive of why I told the story. Okay, now I want to teach you guys Linux operating system. So I'm not going to teach you the Linux operating system in one go. Sorry. In every class, we are going to touch upon Linux operating system in small chunks. And by the end of 4 or 5 classes, I'm not going to cover complete Linux operating system. No, I'm going to cover the part of Linux operating system that you need to use in Splunk. Okay. So let's talk about Linux operating system. First, can anybody tell me the difference between a Windows operating system and a Linux operating system? Anyone? Anyone?
Windows has a graphic user interface and Linux doesn't.
That is the very basic difference that you can tell, right? Windows, I'm working on a Windows machine. I can have a graphical user interface. I can go to my browser like this. I can access any application. It's very user friendly, right? It has a graphical user interface. When it comes to Linux, this is what you get: a black screen wherein you need to type everything. If you don't know the commands, you cannot propagate in Linux. So in Linux commands are very, very important. If you don't know the Linux command, you will never be able to propagate through the Linux terminal only, right? So now I'm going to compare these two operating systems and I'm going to show you some of the nice Linux commands. Are you guys ready? Yes, no? Guys, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, let's go for it.
Yeah, I would request everyone, please be interactive. Okay, I'm trying to make this as interactive as possible, so please interact with me. Ask questions, ask doubts. Yes. Okay, PuTTY is encrypted. Okay, so now what we are going to do now today, is we are going to learn some of the commands of Linux operating system. So we'll first start with the Windows operating system. We are going to compare side by side to the Linux operating system. Okay, let me just clear the screen. Let me just clear the screen. And this is the complete Linux operating system. In this Linux operating system, first you need to understand that there is a hierarchy in Linux operating system. What is that hierarchy? I'll tell you. Okay. In Linux operating system, first of all, it is a Windows is a graphical user interface. Linux is all command line. All you will get is a black screen. If you know the commands, you can work on it. If you don't know the commands, you cannot work on it. Okay. So the hierarchy is something like this. So first is something called okay. There is some things that I want to share. There are some other differences that I would like to share before going ahead. Okay. So Linux operating system, Windows operating system has the graphical user interface. Linux operating system has no graphical user interface. That's the first difference, correct? So let me write it down. GUI and no GUI. Okay, this is the first difference. The second difference is Windows is proprietary software, whereas Linux is open source. So it's not open source. You can say not open source. Okay, you need to buy a license, right? Linux is an open source operating system. It's open source. What do you mean by open source? The code of the Linux operating system is available over the internet. It's an open source operating system. Okay. Secondly, third difference is it's a Windows is not lightweight. It's not lightweight operating system. It's not lightweight. Okay. Whereas Linux is a very lightweight operating system. What do you mean by lightweight? Can anybody tell me what is lightweight operating system? Can anybody tell me what is a lightweight operating system? Anyone?
Oh no.
Okay.
It has less processing power.
A lightweight operating system is an operating system that consumes less RAM. What is RAM? Random access memory. So any operating system that consumes less RAM, it is a lightweight operating system. So let's say you have 8 GBs of RAM on your machine, 8 GB of RAM. If your operating system in itself is consuming 5 GBs of RAM, if your operating system itself is consuming 5 GBs of RAM, let's say, then it's not a lightweight operating system, correct? It is consuming a lot of RAM. It's consuming a lot of RAM, but a lightweight operating system will consume very less RAM. Okay. That is the difference between a lightweight operating system and a normal operating system. Does that make sense? Yes, no? So Linux is
Yes.
open source. Linux is a lightweight operating system. Linux doesn't have a GUI, and Linux is secure. It's not that secure, but not that secure. It is secure as of now, but earlier it doesn't used to be that secure. It's very secure operating system. Can anybody tell me why is Linux an secure operating system? Anyone?
It's not secure.
Because you use command language.
Okay, you can say that it uses command language. Okay, fine. But let me tell you one thing.
Because
Go
because
ahead,
it's
go
an
ahead.
open source. It's an open source application.
It's an open source application that doesn't have to be, that doesn't mean that it will be secure. All open source things are not secure, right? That has nothing to do with security. You understand? So why is it secure?
The vulnerability doesn't spread across. It is contained.
Exactly. So if there is a malware that is present on any particular folder in a Linux operating system, it is highly likely that it is not going to spread out to the complete operating system. But in Windows, if there is a malware that is present in particular folder, it can easily propagate to the complete operating system, and it can render the complete operating system like useless. So propagation of malware is really a point. In Linux operating system, if your malware is present in, let's say, a particular directory, it will not generally spread to the other directory until and unless it finds a vulnerability to exploit. to elevate the privileges. Until and unless it finds a vulnerability to elevate the privilege, it will not be propagating. In Windows, it can easily propagate to multiple files. So if a malware is present in one folder, it will remain in that folder in Linux until and unless it finds a vulnerability that it can exploit. But in Windows, if the malware is present in any particular folder, it can propagate to the other folders as well easily. Do you get an idea? Yes, no?
But why is it so hard to propagate to other directories in Linux?
So this is how the operating system is actually built. The access control, the permission control in Linux there are two accounts in Linux. One is a root account, other is the normal. So there is a very specific, what do you call it? There is a very specific boundary that is set between the user and non-user account in Linux. So that separation of user and non-user account in the newer version of Windows is also there, but earlier it didn't used to be there. And the layout of this Linux is in such a manner that generally it is, you can consider it's basically because of the access controls that we have in Linux. Okay, there are some directories that you will never be able to access only if you don't have the exact permissions for that. It is because of the access control. It's the operating system that is designed in a manner. It is designed in such a manner that it is secure. Okay. So now we are going to learn some of the commands of the operating system right now. Okay. But before learning the commands, guys, Antli, if you had a question, I want to answer that. You have mentioned something, I cannot get it.
I was trying to see how you got to the Linux screen. That's all.
I'll come to that.
Because I went to the bathroom. So
Okay.
I was wondering.
Okay. I'll come to that. Don't worry about it. There are some naming differences that I want you guys to understand before I move to the Linux part of it. Okay. So understand, I'm talking about Linux, and I'm comparing it with Windows. Okay. So what are the differences? In Linux, there is something called directory, which is nothing but a folder in Windows. Okay. So in Linux, there is something called directory, which is called a folder. So in Windows machine, you have folders, right? This is what? This is a folder. Let's say I go to this C drive and I go to this program files. What is this program file? In the program files is a folder, right? A folder is called a directory in Linux. That's the first thing. Okay. Second thing is root is in Linux is nothing but an administrator in Windows. So you know what is an administrator? What is an administrator in Windows, guys? What is an administrator in Windows? Anybody can
The
tell me.
user, the person that's controlling.
A user who has some elevated privileges, who can control a lot of things in the machine, is an administrator. Yes, no? Right?
Yes.
So an administrator on Windows
Yes.
is nothing but a root user in Linux. Okay. An administrator in Windows is nothing but a root user in Linux. And the third thing is a software in Windows is called a package in Linux. A software in Windows is called a package in Linux. So anytime in future, I'm going to refer a package, you need to understand I'm talking about a software. If I'm referring a directory, you need to understand it is nothing but a folder. If I'm talking about root, you need to understand it's nothing but an administrator. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So a
Yes.
directory is a folder. A root is an administrator. Package is nothing but a software in Windows. Now, I'm going to explain Linux. So remember, again, I've not done anything. This was my machine. This is my machine, right? I have logged into my AWS machine using PuTTY. Remember? Yes, no? Now, I am going to tell you something. I'm going to compare the Windows and Linux operating system so that you understand it very, very well. Okay. So let's go ahead. So before going ahead, let me tell you one more thing. I'm going to tell you Linux directory structure. Okay. So let's talk about the Linux directory structure. You need to understand the directory structure of Linux as well. Or let's take this one. It's very simple. Okay. Let's take this one actually. So the directory structure of Linux is such that at the top level, there is this root directory. And the root directory will have these subdirectories. Again, what is directory, guys? Directories are folders. Remember? So there is a root folder, and then there are some specific directories that are used for different purposes. So if I want to see these directories, okay, this is the root directory, and inside of the root directory, you see boot, etc, processor, dev, home, all these directories are there. So inside of this root directory, there are n number of other directories. So if I want to see, this is my Linux machine. If I want to see the root directory, what is directory? Directory is nothing but a folder. What is root? Root is nothing but a slash. If you see, this root directory is nothing but a slash. Do you see this? So if I want to see the root directory, if I want to go to the root directory, I will have to write something called cd and the root directory name. That means cd stands for change directory. So what I want is, I want to go to the root directory. That means I want to change the directory. So I have mentioned cd. And what is a root directory? Root directory is nothing but a slash. So I mentioned cd space slash. So I am now in the root directory. Do you see this? Earlier I was in the home directory, but now I'm in the root directory. It might be a little confusing to you. But in a few classes, you will be all familiar with Linux operating system. That's a promise. Okay. So earlier I was there in the home directory. Home directory starts like this. Okay. So if you want to see home directory, the symbol of home directory is something like, where can I find the symbol? I want to find the symbol somewhere. Yeah, this is the home directory. Okay. And what is the root directory? Root directory is this. This is the root directory. Okay. So you need to remember these symbols as well. This is the home. This is the root. Okay. Now, if I want to change a directory, how can I do? I'll write the command cd and whatever directory I want to go to. Cd and directory name. Whatever directory name. As of now, I wanted to go to the root directory. I mentioned cd space dot. Do you understand it? So cd space and the directory name. Cd stands for, can anybody tell me cd stands for?
Change directory.
Change directory, right? So cd stands for change directory. Okay. So cd space and the directory name will give you to the directory. You need to understand this part, guys, that these are the directories that are present inside of the root directory. That means in this folder, inside this directory, there are these many number of folders or these many number of directories. I'm trying to correlate folders and directories so that you understand that directory is nothing but a folder. So inside of this root directory, there are n number of directories. So this is how the directory structure in Linux looks like. Okay. I mentioned that if I want to change a directory, the command is cd, which stands for change directory. And then I need to specify the directory name. Okay. If I want to see what all contents are there inside of this directory, that means, okay, understand in this manner. This is my machine. Let's go to my C drive. Okay. What is directory? Directory is nothing but a folder in Windows machine. Agreed? Right. If I want to see what all folders are present inside of the program files folder. This is the program files folder, right? I want to see how many folders are present inside of the program files folder. How can I see that in Windows? How can I see that in Windows? Can anybody tell me?
You just double click on it.
Just double click on it, right? When I double click on it, I'll see all the folders that are there inside of this folder, correct? But in Linux, you don't have a graphical user interface. You understand? So if you want to see what all folders or what all directories are present inside of this root directory, the command is ls. ls stands for listing. Okay. So the command is ls. If I do ls, hit enter, I will see what all directories are present inside of my directory. So you need to understand, with graphical user interface, you just double clicked on it and you were able to see all the directories. You were able to see all the directories just by double click on it, right? But in Linux, you cannot double click, right? So you need to specify something called ls. ls will tell you the list of all the directories that are present inside this directory. You don't need to specify any directory name in the ls command, because when you do ls, it will see, okay, where am I? I am in the home, in the root directory. What do I want to list? I want to list anything which is inside of the root directory. Okay, so I am in this directory. whatever is inside of this directory, it would be getting listed. Now, if I want to go to the etc directory, how can I go to the etc directory, guys? How can I go to the etc directory?
CD, change
CD,
directory.
etc.
CD space,
Correct.
etc.
So CD stands for change directory. Now I want to change the directory and I want to go to this etc directory. So I will type CD space directory name, right? Similarly, if I wanted to go in the program files, I wanted to go to this Adobe folder, I will just double click on it to go inside of this Adobe folder, right? Similarly, if I want to go to a directory that is inside of the root directory, I can just do CD etc. And if I do that, what happens is, now do you see, earlier where was we? We were in the root directory, right? Now where are we? There we are in the etc directory. Does that make sense? Yes, no? Does that make sense, guys? Now I want to list everything inside the etc directory. How
Yes.
can I list it? How can I list it?
LS.
ls, right?
LS.
I can write ls. It will list everything inside of my etc directory. So in this etc directory, in this etc folder, so many things are there. When I did a ls, I found out, oh my God, these are so many things are there inside of this etc directory, right? Now I can see all the things inside of my etc directory. But let's think of a scenario like this. If I want to go back to program files, I am in Adobe folder, right? In Windows, I'm trying to compare both of them. I am in Windows. I want to go back to the program files folder. What can I do? In Windows, I can just press this back, right? I'll go to the previous folder. Yes or no? I can just press this.
Yeah.
I can
Yes.
go to the program files folder now, right? I was there in Adobe. When I press this, I went to the program files folder. But in Linux, again, you have nothing to in the GUI. If you are in the etc directory and if you want to go to a prior directory, or you want to go to a top level directory or the prior directory, you understand, earlier when we were going in Windows, we were going inside. So in the program files, if there is a file called Adobe, I'll double click on it and go it, right? Similarly, in the root, if there is something called etc, I'll just do cd etc. But if I want to go back in Windows, you can go back just like this, just by clicking on this. In Linux, you cannot do this. You have to type cd space dot dot. So cd space dot dot will move to the prior directory. Okay, you understand what I'm trying to say?
Can I say something? Well, I need to.
Go ahead, please, Antliff.
Are you gonna give us a list of this?
Of the
Like,
list of commands?
yeah.
Yes, I'm going to
We,
give. Don't worry about it. In the next 2 to 3 classes, everybody would be so familiar with Linux that you will never have any issues. This is a promise. Okay, you just need to be a little patient. I know it's the first time for you, a lot of you guys. Okay, you just need to be a little patient. So I'm there in the root directory. If I want to list the contents, what can I do? If I want to see what our folders are inside of this root directory, what can I do?
LS for listing.
ls for listing.
LS.
Right? When I did a ls for listing, I can see all of the folders, right? Now, if I want to go to the, let's say, to the var folder, I want to go inside of the var folder. That is, this var folder is inside my root directory, right? I want to go to this directory. How can I go to this directory? How can I go to the directory? cd space var. I've gone to this directory. I want to list the contents of this directory. How can I do it?
LS.
ls again, right? So I have gone to this. Now I have listed all the contents in the var directory. Inside of the var directory, I want to go to the log directory. So I can again do cd space log, right? Right. So I can do cd space log. Now, somehow I need to go back to the var directory. I don't want to, where am I? Okay. I want to see, I have got to the log directory. I want to see, where am I? I want to see in which directory am I? I want to see in which directory am I? How can I do it?
.cd.
PWD.
There is something called PWD. PWD stands for present working directory. So if I want to see where am I at this point in time, I'll type PWT and enter. So what does it say? That as of now, you are inside the var directory, you are inside the log directory. So if I do a pwd, it tells me exactly where am I. Right? Now, where do I want to go? I want to go from this log directory back to the var directory. How can I do that? I want to
CD
go
dot dot
back. cd
CD space
space dot dot.
dot dot.
Okay. I can go back to the var directory. You see, from the log directory, I came back to the var directory. Okay. Now, I want you guys to tell me, there are 24 people here in the class. How many of you have never worked on Linux? Just raise your hands. Raise your hands quickly who have never worked on Linux. Okay. Okay. Now, I would request other participants who have actually worked on Linux, who knows these concepts, please be silent for some time. And I want you guys who have actually raised your hands to be attentive and you tell me what exactly needs to be done. Okay. So I think you got a clarity that if I want to list all of the things, I can do a ls, right? What is ls going to do? It's going to list everything inside the var directory, right? Inside the var directory, whatever directories are there, it is going to list. Also, you need to understand that directories are always going to come in blue color. Okay. So in the var directory, if I want to go to the db directory, can anybody tell me how can I do it? Those who have never worked on it, only cd db,
CD DB.
right? Now, if I
Yes.
want to list it, I can do ls, right?
That's it. And
If I
if you want
want
to
to
go
go
back,
back, cd space dot dot.
okay.
Okay.
What about that PWD?
Okay. So PWT tells that where am I at this point in time? Which directory am I? I am at this point in time in the var directory.
Okay. All right. So
Right.
just let you know where you
Exactly.
at.
It
All right.
tells you
Thank
where you are at this directory. Okay. Now, these are some of the basics of it. Now, my screen seems to be full, right? I want to clear the screen. When I say I want to clear the screen, I just want to, whatever I've done in the past, I just want to clear this out. I don't want this to be seen on my screen. How can I do it? I can run a command called clear. If I run clear, everything that is there in my screen will get cleared. Okay. You understand? So things are getting cleared. So clear. Okay. Now, I want to, let's say, where am I? How can I check where am I? I can check PWD, right? Okay. I want to go back to the root directory. If I want to go back to the root directory, how do I go to the root directory? Anyone?
CD dot dot.
cd
Yes.
space dot dot. Okay. Okay. Because root. Okay. I'm there in the root directory. Correct. Now I want to list everything. I've listed it. Let's say I want to go inside the OPT directory. How can I do it? cd space OPT. Correct. Now I'm in my OPT directory. I can see the PWD that I'm in my OPT directory. Do you see that the present working directory is OPT? I want to create a file. I want to create a file. If I want to create a file, or let's say inside the OPT directory, I want to create one more directory. That means I want to create a folder in the OPT directory. How can I create a folder? I want to create a folder by the name of, let's say, buff. I want to create this folder in the OPT directory. How can I create a folder? Let's think of it. If I was in Windows, right? If I was in some directory, right? Let's think, right? If I want to create a folder, what could I have done? I will right click. I will go to the new and I'll create a folder, right? My folder would be created and I can name it anything like ABC, right? This is how we do it in Windows, correct? But if I
Yes.
want to create a folder in Linux, how can I create it? There's a command called mkdir. mkdir stands for make directory. MK stands for make, dir stands for directory. You are making a directory. You are creating a directory. That's why the name is mkdir. Make sense? So if I want to create a directory by the name of bhuv, I'll just mention mkdir and space whatever directory name do I want to. So mkdir bhuv. What does it say? Cannot create a directory, permission denied. What did I just mention some time back? that in Linux, the concept of root and normal users are very prevalent. That means the restrictions are very much on the normal user. You see, a normal user, this is what? This is a normal user, EC2-user. It cannot create a directory in the OPT. Inside of the OPT directory, I was trying to create another directory called bhuv. But this normal user doesn't have access to create it. You understand? This normal user doesn't have access to create it only. That is why it is giving an error that permission denied. So what can I do? If I want to create a directory, I need to be an administrator in Linux. What is an administrator? It's a root user. So again, there are two things, guys, you need to understand. One is a root user, other is a root directory. You don't confuse yourself. One is the root user. Root user is what? This is the administrator user. Okay, administrator user in Linux. What is the root directory? What is the root directory? It is the top level directory in Linux. Top level directory in Linux. Top level directory. Inside of this root directory only every directory comes in. So in Linux, nothing is above the root. Root is the top level directory. Inside of the root, there are multiple other directories like OPT directory, like var directory, like bin directory, like other directory. But root directory is the top level directory, and root user is the administrator user. Understood? Yes, no? Now I am getting an error because this user cannot create a directory. So I need to switch from this user to a root user. If I want to switch from this user to a root user, I need to type sudo su. Sudo su will move your privilege from a normal user to a root user. SU stands for super user. Super user, root user, everything is same. So now, if you see, earlier I was a EC2-user. Now, after running the command called sudo su, I became a root user. Just give me a minute, guys, please. After giving this sudo su, I became a root user. Okay. So now if I want to create a directory, I can do it. mkdir, that is for creating a directory, make directory. The name of the directory is bhuv. That means the directory is created now. No error is there. If I want to see the list, how can I list it? Anyone? I want to see if the directory is created or not. How can I list it?
LS.
LS, right? So now do you see that there is a folder or a directory created inside of this OPT directory? Do you see this? Yes, no?
Yes.
Right? If I want to create a file, not a directory. So I want to go inside of the bhuv directory and I want to create a demo file. How can I go inside of the bhuv directory? Only those who don't have a understanding of Linux previously should answer. Okay?
Make directory.
No. If I want to go inside of this bhuv directory and I want to create a file.
Change directory.
Change directory, bhuv, right? I'll go inside of this directory. Then what can I do is I want to create a file. How can I create a file? In order to create a file, there is a there's an editor called VI. VI is an editor wherein you can create a file. Don't worry, I'm going to tell you everything. I'm going to share a list. In the next 2-3 classes, everyone will be comfortable. Okay, so there's an editor called VI. I can using VI, what is the name of the file I want to create? I want to create a file called demo.txt. I can just create it just like this. Okay, I can just create it. So what I want to say here is that using mkdir, I can create a folder. Using VI, I can create a file. Okay, so what are the few commands that we learned today? What are the few commands that we learned today? Let's do a quick revision of that. Okay, what are the few commands? First is if you want to be a root user, how can you be a root user, guys? Can anybody tell me? Root user. How can you be a root user? Those who have never worked on Linux, only those. How can you be a root user? Sudo su, very nice. Sudo su, right? Sudo su will move you from normal user to root user, right? Root user is the administrator, correct? If I want to go to the root directory, how can I go to the root directory, guys?
ls.
Make directory.
No, I want to go to the root
ls.
directory.
Change directory.
cd/, right? What is root directory? Root directory is this, right? So cd/, got it? The slash might be different. I am always confused regarding the slash. Okay, so let me just
CD backslash.
backslash, right? My bad.
Backslash.
Yeah, I always get confused between the slashes, right? If I want to create, if I want to list the contents inside the root directory, okay, if I want to move to the root directory, I'll go cd/. If I want to list the contents inside the root directory, ls, right?
Yeah, ls. I got that part.
Right? If I want to go to the opt directory, how can I go to the opt directory?
ls opt.
ls opt? No, I want to go to the opt directory. I'm not listing something.
cd opt.
cd opt, very nice. I want to list out the contents of opt directory.
ls.
I want to.
How about if you want to see the content of a file?
I'll come back to it.
spwd.
I'll come to it. Okay. If I want to go to the buf directory, how can I go to the buf directory?
cd buf.
Yes, exactly, right? cd is change directory. I want to list everything, ls, right? Inside the buf directory, is there anything? No, there is nothing, right? So I can create a file. Let's say demo.txt. How can you create a file? Using cat or using anything. Okay, so I can create a file with vi. Let me just create a file. Let's say demo.txt. I'll show you everything. Okay, demo.txt. I'm not telling this is a demo file. This is a demo file. Okay, I'm just creating it. Okay, this is a demo file. Now if I want to see the content of this file, how can I see the content of this file? Cat demo.txt. This is a demo file. You understand? So there are a lot of commands. We are not going to talk about everything today. We are going to talk about some of them tomorrow or in the upcoming classes as well. I am going to share one more video on Linux to everyone. So I have
We got
covered some
class
of the
tomorrow.
things. No, we don't have a class tomorrow. The class would be next week, Saturday, 8:30 a.m. EST. Okay. And that class is no more a free class, guys. Those who are willing to be a part of that class should register before this Wednesday. Okay. Before the coming Wednesday, I need whomsoever wants to attend the upcoming classes, they should register for it. Okay. So this was a part of Linux that I wanted to cover. Actually, I wanted to cover a lot of other things as well. But I would share one more video on Linux to everyone. Okay. And in the upcoming classes as well, we are going to take some time every single day and we are going to talk about Linux. Okay. Be rest assured that in the next 3 classes, everyone will be very comfortable with Linux. Okay. So with that said, I am open for any questions that you have. And after which I'm going to close the call. Any questions, guys?
Someone that had joined this class today, they was trying to watch yesterday's class.
Okay, can you see that? Okay, I'll just write my number again here. +919454909954. This is my WhatsApp number. Ping me over WhatsApp. I'll send you the drive link where both the classes would be present. Okay, you can watch it, and after watching it, if you feel like you want to register, you can contact me there. Okay. Any other questions? Everybody can see this number? The person, I'm not sure who asked. Can you see this number, please?
Yep, everything's good. I see everything.
Okay. Absolutely fine. Any other questions, guys, for me? Any other question?
Yeah. When
Go
are
ahead,
you
please.
posting the commands for Linux?
Sorry.
When are you posting the command for Linux?
So I would be posting one more video on Linux in the drive itself in the next 1 to 2 hours. Okay. And I would also be sharing you a Linux commands file as well.
Yeah, I want the file. The file.
I'll share both in the drive link only.
The drive link is the Google Drive, right?
Yes, the Google Drive.
Okay. When you share it, text me.
Yeah, sure. I'll share and text everyone.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. If you don't have any question, I would be fine to close the call off. If you have anything for me, you can ping me or WhatsApp. Yeah, anyone had any question? Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I just coming in. Okay. The question is that when is the registration again?
So the registration would be ending by this Wednesday.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So you can ping me if you have any other questions. I can respond to you. You can just text me or WhatsApp. Okay.
One more question before
Yeah,
you
please.
go.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
When you doing the download PuTTY, which one was it? The Windows installer was 64-bit, x86, or the 64-bit ARM, or 32-bit
So my
x86?
okay, my machine, if you see, I'm not sharing my screen or what? Let me just reshare my screen once again. So my machine was a 64-bit x86. So that's why I downloaded 64-bit x86. You understand?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know which one mine. I'm on the Dell.
Okay. If you want to know which one is yours, you can which machine you are using, Windows or Mac?
Windows.
Windows. You can just press Windows E. Windows E. Windows. Press Windows and then E. You'll come to this kind of what do you call it, Explorer tab, right? You just
Mhm.
find this PC, you right click on this PC, so you go to the properties and you would be able to see what operating system you have.
They go to system and then hit about. Okay. Thank you.
64-bit operating system. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much everyone for joining the class. You can expect the recordings and everything in next 2 hours. The recordings would be available for only those who have pinged me, because I don't have other details, right? So please ping me over this number if you want the recordings for the previous and today's class. And if you want to register, the deadline is this Wednesday. So the deadline would be in next 2-3 days, right? 21. That's it. Thank you so much, everyone.
Hey Bob,
Yeah, go ahead, please.
what's the form of payment? What is the form of payment? How do people
Uh,
pay you?
would you mind to ping me or WhatsApp? I'll tell you everything.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, let's not waste the time. There are people who have already registered and this is recorded as well, right? So let's not increase the recorded content. Ping me or WhatsApp. You have my number. Okay. And from there, we are going to take it off. Okay.